Welcome to episode 67 of the Self-Care 101 podcast, helping you to overcome self-doubt and create a life by design with purpose, with your host, Puja McClymont. Thank you so much for listening today. So guys, this will be my last episode for 2020. I am taking a much needed break from the business over the next few weeks so that I can get my creative juices flowing to hopefully create some exciting and more valuable shows for 2021. But first, I want to thank you all so much for listening to the show. I know I say it in every episode, in the intro and the outro, but I really do mean it. I had no idea that the show would be received so well, and especially without a big advertising machine behind me, I have managed to gain over 1,000 listeners each month, which for me is totally amazing. I mean, to give you some context, those shows that you see in the new and noteworthy or recommended shows on various players, they get like over 10,000 listeners a month. So, I've got a little way to go, but for me, this has just been incredible. I mean, I can't even fathom how great it feels to have created something from my heart, something that I really wanted to do and literally just do to help other people. And I feel like I have achieved that goal really well. So yay. I cannot thank you enough for being here, for supporting me, for listening to the shows, for the feedback you give me, for the reviews you write. Everything is just amazing. But if you do enjoy the show, please, can you write a review on Apple Podcasts? Because this really helps other people discover the show as well. Now, for the new year, I'd like to aim a little higher with the types of shows I produce, and I'm looking at interviewing more high-profile people and bringing you even more insight and support for your well-being. So if you have any ideas, please feel free to send me an email, hello@pujamcclymont.com, because your input is so invaluable. Look, it is your show after all. I produce it for you. So the more input you have, the more feedback I can get from you of the kind of shows you want me to talk about, the sort of topics you want me to cover. It will really help me for the new year. So in today's show, I want to cover the year we've just had and how to take the best bits, even if you think there may not be any, into the new year. There are some tips, as always, to help with creating a better year for yourself in 2021. But I really want us to cover a couple of really important topics that I think we've all experienced this year. So let's get to it. So today's show is going to be super frank. I'm going to really come back to myself today. I've spent the last couple of months doing some soul searching in my business and within myself, and I've pretty much discovered that as the year has progressed, I've kind of lost my voice. I've kind of lost who I am, why I set up the podcast, why I set up my coaching practice in the first place, and just trying to redefine it for who I am, what I want to help other people with in their lives, and really where I want to go with my legacy, essentially, my business, where I want to take it, where I see myself, etc. And essentially, this all boils down to how I serve you, the listener, the coachee, my clients. It's how I'm serving you. And I feel like this year, and I'm sure there are other business owners who are listening can attest to this, and even you personally, to be honest, because comparison is everywhere. And because we've spent so much time online this year, I've really struggled with it. I've seen so many things happening. There's been this wave of coaches online, and they're not coaches like me. They're just, to me, in my mind, they're just teachers. They're just teaching their own skills to other people who want to do what they're doing. So, and I applaud it. If it's working for you, great, and I applaud it. But I feel like their messaging, their marketing messaging, was very harsh and very pain related. So yes, they were hitting the pain points like you would do in marketing, but I feel like they went too far, and it certainly affected me. And I'm quite, I'm going to put this out there, I'm quite intelligent, and I didn't think that I would be wavered by this, but I actually was. And it just kind of really showed me how easy it is to get sucked into the social media game. And I have to admit, this is a game. I've hired a social media manager for the last few months, and we have a plan for the new year. But a lot of the things that she's putting down for me to do are quite taxing on both my mind and my energy. And I'm not sure about it. I'm not sure if I want to play the game, but I'm also quite happy that I'm in this position to consider that. Now, people talk about you have to be on social media, you have to be on social media. But can I tell you a little secret? Bizarrely, my clients don't come to me from social media. They actually follow me on social media after the fact. So it's something to consider. So if you're a business owner who has been falling into that comparison trap, I would consider, where does your business actually come from? Because if it is coming from social, then obviously put that effort in and do more of it. But if it's not coming from social, what else can you do, and how else can you get your voice heard? The other thing that I was kind of consumed with on the whole comparison cycle on social media was the fear of not earning money, being a failure, and just, the quest for what I'm doing in my life, in my work, maybe not being what I thought it was. The pandemic has really thrown up a lot of questions that we may not have asked ourselves in other circumstances. I mean, there was a point in the year where I was like, which companies are recession proof, and I started considering that, and I was like, well, there's the energy companies, there's sanitary companies, there's food, and really started looking at, maybe I need to look at my life in a more simpler way. But then I managed to come back to self, because I thought, well, people's mental well-being is recession proof, right? I mean, I know that I'm very much focused on empowering people to live a life by design. And what that means is to live the life that they want to live. And it's not something about living this grand life where you live in a mansion and you've got drivers and you holiday, in the Bahamas and whatever. I'm not saying that. But we all have an idea of the life that we want to have at some point in our lives. And then we get into the doing stage of life and we lose that vision. We lose what it is. We lose what we wanted for ourselves. We lose how we were going to spend time with our kids, how we were going to do it differently. And that is what I'm doing in my work. It's basically that, that life that you thought you were going to have that you don't have right now, let's make it happen. And I really had to dig deep on this, because I thought about my own experience, the depression, not prioritizing myself, and how that affected my life, the successes that I had achieved in my life in terms of work and money and attainment of things like houses and cars. And I thought, what? No matter what I really always wanted was this ideal life, which was that I want to be able to go to Marks and Spencer on a whim on a Saturday and do my shopping there if I want to for the week. I don't want to have to be chained to the Sainsbury's, Tesco's, etc. I want to have the choice. I want to be able to book 5-star holidays because I like 5-star holidays. That's it. There's no other reason. I like it. I like that if I'm going on a holiday, I want for nothing, I want that luxury. I want to be treated well, because there's only so much of it that you can do in your real life, right? Because we've got responsibilities, clothes need to get washed or whatever. And yes, you can get a cleaner and whatever, but it's not the same as treating yourself to a really special holiday. And so that was one of the things that I wanted. I wanted to be able to have time with my husband, actual quality time with him, not just functioning time. And when I say functioning time, I'm talking about making a coffee and then telling him to get the washing done or look after my son or do this and that. I wanted it to be like we actually spent meaningful time together in our relationship before we retired or before children grew up and things like that. That's the vision that I had for myself. I wanted to be physically healthy and look sweet in, skinny jeans and a shirt or something. I don't know, whatever. But I want to look a certain way and I want to feel a certain way. I want my hair done a certain way. I want to be able to go to people's houses and not have to second think, oh, can I afford to get them a bottle of wine? Can I spend time with them, or do I need to do work at the same time? Do I need to be available for? And all of these visions as basically creating that life by design. And I'm not, see, like those things aren't massive. They're not massive. But in reality, how many of us are actually living the life we had dreamt of living, if we had dreamt of living it? Now, if you're listening to this show, my perception is that you are someone who does want to up level. You are someone who is a high achiever in your own right. You're someone who is ambitious. You're someone who wants to live life to the fullest. You just want more, and you want to enjoy the journey, and you want to understand what happiness is for you, and you want to be living life to the fullest, living life in such a fulfilled way, not living to work, but to work to live, essentially, being great at your job, being great as a parent, being great as a partner, being great at living your life. Obviously, that sounds very dreamy and lofty, but where the word great is inserted is subjective. The word great is subjective. What I consider great is going to be different to what you consider great and what somebody else considers great. And that's the beauty of us being individuals. So on that note, with the show moving into the new year, I really want to focus on more up-leveling, more empowering, more inspiring, more let's do more for ourselves. Whether that is spending more time on our mental health and mental well-being, spending more time in quality relationships and what makes a quality relationship, spending more time understanding ourselves so that we can serve others better in everything that we do. Talking about leadership, approaching your job or your career as a leader. So you don't have to be a business owner or top of the food chain in a company to work as a leader. And if you're signed up to my email list, you'll have received an email from me last week with a link to an audio from Robin Sharma, which is absolutely amazing at talking about how you can be a leader in your job. So if you were a road sweeper, for instance, you do that job in the best way possible. You lead. It's beautiful. If you want the link, just send me an email and I'll send it to you. But moving on from that, with that vision and empowerment and inspiration, what I really want us to focus on, and if you follow me on Instagram, you will have seen in my stories that all this month I've been running a campaign, if you like, called the 24 Days of Gratitude. And each day I just did a little video of something that I was grateful for. And some are really serious, some are very funny, some are silly, some are very simple. I think on one of the days, me and my son said that we were grateful for apples. And the point of this was, to challenge myself a little bit, because I hadn't been actively grateful every single day in the way that I would like to be. And also to hopefully inspire others to do it. And the feedback has been incredible. People have been messaging me and talking to me and saying, oh, I'm loving your stories. It's so much fun. It's really reminding me. And that's it. That's the point of it. You don't have to reply to these things. But if it does inspire you to feel more gratitude for what you do have, we're all winning at this point. So gratitude is a really, really big point that I want to make today about how important it is to live a life of gratitude. And more than anything, there's another show on it, so you can just listen to that. But more than anything, the biggest take home is that it's just being grateful for the simplest of things. Don't overcomplicate it, but do it every single day. Make a pact to yourself that you're going to do it every single day. Because if you do have that attitude of gratitude, when adversity hits you, and I don't think we're going to have anything as big as a pandemic hit us again in our lifetimes, but if you do have something else that is adversely affecting you, you're going to be able to build more resilience to bounce back from that in a much more positive manner. So please, 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 if you can, bring gratitude into your day, every day, for the rest of your life. The other topic I wanted to just touch upon was if you have been alone during the pandemic and you've struggled with meaningful connections. Now, I have people in my life that are alone and lonely. And there is a difference, being alone is just the physicality of you are alone. But being lonely is that you do not have people in your life to give you that human connection, that meaningful connection that you need. And that is a very, very different place to be. Be mindful of the language that you're using when you talk about loneliness or being alone or being lonely, because if you keep having that conversation to yourself, I am lonely, I'm so alone, when will it change? I really wish I had somebody. I hate that everybody's got a partner, or this person's got children, and I'm so alone, I'm so alone. Every time you say that, you just perpetuate it. You're actually making it worse. And I'm not telling you this like some, I don't know. I'm not preaching this to you in a way to sort of tell you what to do. This is science-backed stuff that I'm talking about. All this mindset stuff, the way our neurotransmitters work, we absorb the negative words, the negativity, the negative emotions. And when we do that, our actions actually reflect it. So the more you talk about being lonely, the more you're going to feel lonely. Whereas if you accept that you are alone, but you have people in your life that you have these beautiful, meaningful relationships with, your life will be richer and it will be easier to be alone. Because I can tell you this now, for those of you who are on your own feeling lonely, there's a camp of us on the other side who don't get a chance to be alone and have the opportunity to have the time for ourselves that we would love to have, that you're having. So it's always going to be a case of the grass is always greener, but just consider how can you make the most of being alone. And there is another show on loneliness, so have a look at that. There's a fantastic book about loneliness by John I forgot his name again. Cacioppo. I always get that always tongue twist, sorry. John Cacioppo, he wrote a book about loneliness and it is superb. It's really good to understand what it actually means and the difference between being alone and being lonely, and how to have more connection with yourself so that you don't rely on other people to fulfill that side of you. There are some of us who love being alone and being able to just have that time for themselves, to regroup, to reset, to do anything, to just do whatever the hell we want to do. But we don't get that time. So consider the grass being greener. I know I sound like easier said than done because I'm on the other side, but I've been on your side too for a long time. For over 10 years, I was in that space of alone and lonely, where I didn't feel that I had meaningful connections. I was being this social butterfly and being friends with everybody and giving myself away to everybody. And then obviously other stuff with men and just not valuing my self-worth. And I lost myself in that space. So then when I did get a relationship, I became codependent and almost jeopardized that amazing relationship because I couldn't understand who I was. Take this time that you've had alone to really consider what you want your life to look like. And I'm going to go a little bit further here and a little bit harsher. For those of you who are alone and want to be in a romantic relationship, I appreciate how tricky it is right now. I do appreciate that. But there are still people around you. You are still going to the supermarket. You are still going to parks. There are still opportunities for you to meet people in person. I really urge you to consider how picky you are being. Now, that doesn't mean that you are devaluing yourself if you go for someone different, but being picky is very, very different to being compromising your self-worth. It really is different, all right? And in different times in our lives, compromises are good to consider, okay? And I'm just saying to consider. I'm not saying just, compromise everything and just take the first guy or girl that you see. No, not at all. But consider what you're being picky about, because things can change. People do change. I can tell you this now as someone who's in a long-term relationship. The relationship will continually evolve and change. So you've got to have those foundations right more than anything. but consider what your options are. And I'm not just saying this as a sort yourself out kind of, like I said, preachy or telling you what to do. But I think when I read and consume things about singletons and the type of language that they're using, I am concerned that they are perpetuating this state of negativity within themselves, which is not good. It's not good for you. You can't say on one hand, oh, I hate being alone. But then on the other hand, your inner critic, your self-talk is constantly about being lonely. You've got to find other ways. And it's very difficult for me to talk about this because we're not in a coaching relationship and I can't speak to you directly about what you're personally going through, but I am here. So send me a message, contact me, book in a half an hour call with me. It's for free, and talk to me about it. How can I help you with being alone, feeling lonely, wanting a relationship? This is what I do and I'm here for you. Okay, let's move on. Using social media. This year, of course, we've used social media. We need to use social media. We need to stay connected. I am a fan of social media, right? It helps my business. It helps keep me connected to people. It helps me meet new people. I like it. I'm a social person, so it works for me. However, spending too much time on it or spending idle time on it is the worst thing you can do for your mental well-being. So just go into this new year with more mindfulness towards how you use and consume social media, because if you don't, they will take over you. And when I say they, I'm talking about Facebook. I'm talking about the people who own social media. They are going to consume you. They manage your phones. My gosh, the mic on your phone, everything is just controlled. So please be more mindful. Watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix. Get some insight on how social media works, and then make a mindful choice in how you use it. And I must stress this. If you are bored, if you are feeling lonely, let me say it again, if you are bored, don't go on social media, babe. Pick up the phone and speak to somebody, or physically take yourself outside for a walk. There is a beautiful life happening around you, and you're missing it because you think the world is in social media. Social media is always a version of the world. I try to be as open as possible on social media, but I'll tell you this straight. You are never going to get 100% me. You're not, because I save myself for my clients. I save myself for my husband. I save myself for my son. I save myself for my family and friends that I want to spend time with. So I'm not going to put every single thing about my life on social media. I choose what I put out there, and I choose some bad stuff too. I'm not talking about just putting out the good stuff. I choose to share journey and pain and things like that and struggles. But you're never going to get 100% me, because the only way to do that is to have a real relationship with me. Okay? And that can take years to, discover and explore. So it's just a part of somebody's life, right? And it's never going to be the whole truth, because that's a lot to put out there, the whole truth. All right, it's got to make sense, because you've also got to be, as somebody who creates, if you are putting things out about the whole truth, you've also got to be able to back it up, because this is what gets my goat. When people spew about their lives, and the types of people I'm talking about are celebrities or influencers who talk about, mental health challenges, or I'm feeling depressed, or I'm so anxious, blah, blah, blah. And then they just leave it there and just say, if you are feeling like this, go and get help. And it just mortifies me, because it's like, don't talk about a topic that you can't help somebody with. When I put up a post that elicits somebody emotionally, I am ready to receive those people in my DMs. And that's where I find them. That's where they come. That's where they'll say, oh my God, Puja, that really hit home. Sometimes they'll say something in the comments that I think, ooh, that's quite sensitive. And I will send them a DM and say, my love, are you okay? Do you want to talk through this? And I do it for free. I don't charge people, because at the moment you're on social media and you're consuming this stuff, and if something hits you that I have said, I want to be able to complete that cycle to help you through it. Even if that is referring you to different services or different options, I will do that. I'm not in it for the money. I need to pay my bills, but I'm not in it for the money. So when you do see people who are open and saying reach out and support, etc., then take it. If you are following people who don't give you that how, just say, find the help that you need in a very generic way, stop following those people, because all they're doing is they're making you more unwell, and it's not worth it. Okay, the last point-ish is about negativity, and I cannot stress this enough. As we know, I am anti-news. You just need to read the headlines. You need to listen to the PM speech for about, the first 10-15 minutes. After that, it's speculation, it's sensationalized, and it's propaganda. It's no point. You just need the facts. Once you got the facts, get on with your life. All right? There is a whole life happening outside of the news. Other people's opinions. I have noticed on social media, people in my own life are quite actively sharing their opinions about the pandemic. Now, I have my views on the pandemic. I don't share my 110% side of the pandemic, how I feel about it, but I share enough to give you an idea of where I sit with it. But some people have really taken this time to overtly enforce their opinions, which I feel are very, very misguided, because one, the people who are sharing these opinions aren't thinking it through. And you can tell that with the language that they use, or I can tell that through the language that they use. And two, they are encouraging conversations that are offensive to the people who they are friends with. I'll tell you that for nothing. Somebody that I know would say he's a friend stroke acquaintance recently put up a post about somebody in the media or in the public eye, and it elicited a series of comments from people that follow him that were racist, and they were so heavily racist that I sat there reading these comments being offended by what they were saying. And it went further because I saw the friend kind of, enabling those comments. He was agreeing with these racist comments. And I was like, oh, dude, well, that's changed our relationship. And I had this conversation with one of my clients as well about how can you still be friends with people if you have different opinions? And I think there's a fine line here. You can be friends with people who have different opinions, like people who support different politics and stuff like that. It is possible because your relationship is not based on politics. And if it is, I would just review your relationship as a whole anyway. But the way to do it, in that sort of scenario is different because it's not just based on politics. It's based on, shared interests, etc., growing up, whatever. But when it comes to something like racism, you've just shown me your character, or it's a tricky area there for me, because it's like, I respect your opinion. I don't respect your condoning of racism. So that's where it is tricky in that relationship, and it changes how I feel about that person and how I want that person in my life. Like, I can be quite harsh, but in my mind now, I don't want to invite him to stuff that I host. I like to host. I have parties all the time. Not when we're in a pandemic, obviously, but I'm a big host. I love it. I love going out, meeting people, etc. But now I'm like, I don't think that that's what we're going to be doing, honey, moving forward. So have a think about the relationships in your life, and yes, you can rationalize your relationships a little bit, but really consider what kind of person, what kind of people you want in your life, because I guarantee you, my loves, this year will have changed you in some way, shape, or form, or in many ways. It will have changed you. And if you want to protect your mental well-being and your life and the life that you're creating, you have to consider the people that are in your life and who you want to keep in your life. Again, this isn't another show, so have a recap, but you've really, really got to consider these relationships because they feed you as well. The people that you spend time with are feeding your energy, so choose well. Tiny one about fear. The pandemic is scary. Anything that the government releases is scary. People passing away is scary. Of course it is. There is a fear. But fear reduces the efficacy of your immune system. All right. And if that happens, then you're going to be more susceptible to getting sick. So just bear that in mind when you're feeling scared and things like that. So long as you are doing the things to keep yourself and your loved ones safe, you should be good, hun. You should be good. So just reframe fear as much as possible. When you start getting scared, recluse, think about what you're doing, because the more scared you are, the more fear you have about this pandemic, the more you're compromising your immunity. And that is going to then obviously open you up to getting unwell in some way, shape or form. So just be very, very mindful of that. And the final point on my final show of 2020. Defining happiness. I recently put a post up about happiness not being a destination, that happiness is a journey. And this is probably the biggest learning that I have had in my life that I am going to preach to you. And I'm going to shout from the rooftops next year, but I really am about this. Defining happiness for yourself. I think we get very much caught up in the shoulds, what we should be doing, when we should be doing it by. And we actually don't realize what we like. Now, the best way, and totally proven, you can ask any of my clients, but the best way to do this is to remove yourself from your life. Some way, go for a walk, take a trip when we can, etc. But remove yourself from your life and look at it with a bird's eye view. What do you want your life to look like? And look at your life to see how much of that is actually happening right now. And it will be there. You'll see it. When you're in a position where it's like, do I need to cook that food or do I want to spend time with my child? Take the time and spend it with your child. If the house is messy, but your kids want you, spend time with the child. Spend time with your kids. Don't worry about the mess. Don't worry about the mess. If your partner can't take you out and spend money on you because they're not working or they're not earning, just be with them. Do something together. Play a board game. Do it differently. Change your perspective. Look at your life and really, really look at your life. This goes back to gratitude. At what you actually have in it. It may not look like what you thought it would look like, but you might actually have everything that you wanted. And if you want more, create that vision and have more. You can. So I really hope that this end of year brings you some peace, some good reflection time. I hope opportunities for growth, and that 2021 is a better year for you. I know that's my agenda. I just want it to be better. I have very specific goals, but I do want it to be better next year. I want to be better. I want to be better. I want to grow in myself. I want to achieve certain goals for myself that I stagnated with this year. We're in a different climate now, so things change. So let's change with them. And I am here. If you want my help, I am here. I'm a full-time coach. I can do this. Look, guys, thank you so much for listening to this show. Thank you so much for supporting it. I'm not sure when the next season will be out yet because I'm getting prepared for the new year. But I am so grateful to you all for listening. And I just send you all the love in the world. And be safe, have lots of peace, and most importantly, laugh and laugh and laugh whenever you can. Lots of love. Thank you for listening to the Self-Care 101 podcast. If you enjoyed the show, I would love it if you would subscribe, rate and review so that other people like you can find the show. To find out more about me, you can follow me on the socials at Puja McClymont or visit my website, pujamcclymont.com. Talk to you soon.